for the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Featuring site publishers Carrie Murdoch and Josh McQuistion, along with videographer Eddie Radosevich. It's the unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40. Carrie Murdoch alongside Josh McQuistion and Eddie Radosevich here on this January 18th as we're recording this here podcast. And it's a sad podcast because there's no more football, but we've still got a lot of football recruiting going on. Trae Young show, even though it sucked at Kansas State for the first time all year, it is just picking up, and it was kind of an interesting week just because I don't know what happened at ESPN. They fired all their journalists, so now they are just running rampant with little analytic nerd jackholes and decided that this was the week that they just shit on Trae Young. And then when he didn't have a good game, it was like...
It kind of played right into their
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, God, we were right. My God, can you believe it?
I mean, God forbid that a 19-year-old freshman has his first bad game in college.
And then they were just like, see, we told you. We told you that he was going to be wrong with the shooting and the jumping and the throwing and the ball and the turnovers.
Kind of funny that the night that he sets the all-time record for quickest to 500 points, he also has the most turnovers in a game in Big 12 history.
You know what's bizarre, though, is like, I was watching the Thunder last night, and they were talking about how Russell Westbrook had 7 turnovers in a quarter. And, like, they made it out like he was, just a shit show because he had 12 turnovers in a game. When I would say he handles the ball a lot more than even Russell Westbrook does in the NBA.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think at one point going into last week, I think 83.7% of Oklahoma's offense ran through Trae Young.
According to all the stats.
And when you turn the ball over 12 times, that's going to happen.
It wasn't
You're
good.
Get beat.
Going to Manhattan is never good for Lon Kruger Sooners.
No, Oklahoma can't win up there.
It's just ridiculous.
I don't know what's crazier, the fact that they haven't won up there since 2012, led by a Tommy Mason Griffin. I think it was a coast-to-coast basket at the end of the game. Or the fact that I don't think Oklahoma has scored over 70 in Manhattan since, like,
it's a shit show.
It's a long time. I think it's 2003, but it's been a long time.
It's been kind of an interesting week. There's been some, the Jerry Schmidt stuff happened. I can't even remember last time we did the podcast. I think we were maybe just kind of hinting at it. It had happened like
I think the news had come out that we hadn't.
Had it come out?
Yeah, I think it had come out, and we were just kind of figuring. Because I remember talking about homeboy from Kansas State, thinking he should be the guy, and obviously I think that it was him
Dawson.
Chris Dawson or Bennie Wylie. And
did we mention even Bennie Wylie last week at this time? I can't remember.
No, because I think that you put out those feelers on Saturday.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Hey, Josh.
I'm enjoying this like everybody else.
We're just reminiscing. We're reminiscing over the week.
Reminiscing. Josh, is it still sleeting, frozen rain in Houston, or are you guys like at 80 degrees now?
No, it'll be, I think, 68 by the weekend. I think Saturday 67, Sunday will be 70. But it's still high of 42 here right now. I mean, which in Houston is like 5 in Oklahoma. Like that's how it's so serious. Everybody, wrapping their pipes and all this crazy stuff. I'm like, guys, it's barely going to freeze. Like, just calm down a little bit. But every year we go through this, and Tiffany and I sit around and laugh at how crazy everyone becomes. But this year, I will say, this is actually a realistic freeze. Our first year, we had a warning like this, and we had one tree in our yard that had a little bit of frozen, a little bit of ice on it. And that was all we saw the whole time.
My neighbor came over the other day and asked me, like, this was at night, but somebody knocking on my door, and I'm like, who the hell is that? And it was my neighbor asking me if I had water, because I guess their pipes had frozen, and I didn't know really what to do in that situation. I was like, are you asking me if my pipes are frozen, or are you asking me like if you can have some water? Like, and are you asking me like, can you come in and take a shower? Because like I just felt like it's kind of one of those things where I was just kind of like, I don't want to let someone come in and just take a shower.
You know who I bet does have water? Embassy Suites, about a mile away from here.
Yeah, that's true. I did kind of feel that way. Like, I'm sorry you don't have water, but you can't come in.
That's been happening all over Oklahoma City. I've seen Oklahoma City trucks like constantly out, and you can tell that they're working on piping or whatever they do. You can just tell when something like that is going on.
The area of Houston that Tiffany and I lived in when we moved down here, there was a warning sent out this morning. They can't even run their water right now. They have to boil it. Like any water you drink or bathe or wash your hands, I mean anything, you have to boil it for more than 2 minutes. It has to be boiling for 2 minutes before you can even use it. There's some sort of major malfunction at the water treatment plant. I mean, like I said, this city has no idea how to deal with anything below 50 degrees.
This is the worst, 12 months of weather in Houston history, right?
It's got to be on the short list. I mean, they've had, you go back to some of the, I think it was Rita that was the big one that hit in like 08, 07, something like that. And it was bad. No, Ike. I'm sorry, that was Ike. And it was bad, but it wasn't like the water damage and all this stuff. It's lingering stuff that just can't get rid of. And you guys know, I mean, anybody that lives in Oklahoma can remember the ice storm of like 07. Like, it's not anything like that, but the magnitude, because this city has no ability to cope with it. For every, you compare the size of the city, probably for every 4 salt trucks that Oklahoma City has, Houston has 1. So, I mean, it's just they have no way to deal with this stuff.
I think I saw that Houston now has officially more snow than Oklahoma City for the month or the
just precipitation.
The last 2 months, I guess, whatever it was. Because then they have something about a month ago too as well.
Yeah, that was Laney's first ever experience.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We literally stayed home.
Yeah.
The problem is this time it's like what is on our house is more just like frozen like ice on the ground. But when it sits on the ground, it looks like snow. And so I keep out like Laney wants to go play in the snow, and I'm like, baby, that's not snow. That's not you're not going to have any fun with that at all. You're just going to slip and fall. And so and she's 3.5. That concept makes no sense to her.
Okay, so kind of what's going on right now is that we're tracking junior days. I guess you would kind of consider this one coming up this weekend, Josh, kind of the small one with the big one yet to come. Is that kind of how this is shaping up?
That's what it looks like, and I think part of it is due to the basketball schedule. And no, that's not Bedlam. I can't remember who they have coming in that day for the second one. It's like February 17th.
Texas.
Okay, yeah. I fixed it. I had it in my head. It was a rivalry game. But so I think they're pushing a lot more to that. I know, especially a lot of we've talked about it a little bit privately. I know a lot of the secondary guys will be there. I think you're going to, and when I say secondary, I mean, defensive backs. I think you're going to see a lot of the Dallas area guys. Like I expect Theo Weiss to probably come to the one in February. So you'll see some other names there. This one I think was always meant to be a little smaller. I think a little more, I don't know if intimate's the right word. Now, I certainly don't think these are, the guys that are here, these are OU's top targets. I don't think it's like that. I think Oklahoma is just trying to kind of pick certain guys that maybe they feel like they can either close on or they're really close with or that they can make some decisions about. For an instance, Cole Mashburn. There is a lot of talk of where he'll fit for Oklahoma. I know they love him as a football player. He's probably not a defensive end for Oklahoma. I think he's more of an H-back type if they want to go that way with him. And I think there's some decisions to be made if they want to do that. So I think you're just seeing a smaller group that Oklahoma maybe still has some things to work through on.
And I think to me that's a really interesting part of Lincoln Riley now being the head coach, not having Bob Stoops around is the jumbo athlete. Like Dimitri Flowers is leaving. Who's going to kind of are they still interested in kind of picking up that mantle of having really impressive big jumbo athletes on this team and in this offense, because I think you look at Jeremiah Hall and you wonder, well, is he really kind of the same, on that same plane as all these other guys have been in the past, the Trey Millards and the Dimitri Flowers? And yeah, I mean, you look at Cole Mashburn and he could be kind of a special, utility offensive guy. I mean, I think he's a hell of a defensive player. I mean, I don't know. I'd say he's, what is he, like 6'2", probably 6'2.5", 6'3", maybe.
I think he's probably on the high side of 6'2". I don't know if he's pushing. I don't know if he's actually pushing 6'3", but
I mean, I've been around him a lot. He just always seems like that guy. You're just kind of like, I wish he was a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I think he could really play that H-back role. I don't think that he has Norman North uses
kind of
him.
think he could be a defensive lineman still, though. I mean, he's just a scrappy kid. I mean, he's like
he's one of those. He's one of those guys where the sum is better than the parts. Like, you watch him, and you're like, damn, that dude makes a lot of plays. And then you look at him and you're like, I mean, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. Cole Mashburn's a good football. He's a good athlete. I mean, he's not a guy that, like, you look at him and you're like, what the hell happened here? How did this guy make all these plays? It's not bad. It's just, but if you look at him and then you go look at Colin Clay at Putnam City, there's no comparison. Yeah. Colin Clay's a big, long, good-looking athlete. I mean, he's what you're looking for. And Mashburn's just a little squatty, or a little shorter armed, a little shorter legged, just more compact in general. But you turn on the tape, and I mean, his tape's as good as anybody in Oklahoma, short of Daxton Hill.
Yeah, and since he was a sophomore, he's been making plays on the defensive line in Class 6A. I mean, to me, that says something. I mean, could he be a 3 technique? I don't know, but I mean, he just makes plays. I mean, is he like Corey Klein possibly? I mean, is he one of those guys? Is he just one of those guys that you put him on a football field and he finds a way to be a difference maker?
To me, that's his case. And if I'm him, that's what I go with. You guys can recruit me at this, you can recruit me at that. If you'll give me a chance, I'll make plays for you. I'll do, what you need to do. And like I said, his tape backs it up. Because, guys, we've spent, 2 years talking about Bray Walker. I've seen 2 straight years Cole Mashburn beat up Bray Walker. I mean, now, Bray's upside is better than Cole's. That's just the nature of the beast. He's got a lot more room to grow as a player and as an athlete than Cole does. And this is where, we always have to get into these things where we talk to fans about there's a difference between player and prospect. Cole Mashburn's a better player right now. Bray Walker is a better prospect because there's so much room for him to grow. And, to me, that's when Cole Mashburn made his name as a sophomore, like you mentioned, Kerry. When he went out for Norman North, when Bray was still at Southmore, and he just kicked him up and down the field. I mean, he had a hell of a day against Bray Walker.
I mean, I'm kind of, it's Norman North. There's a history there, but I almost feel about him like I felt about Jordan Evans. Like, you just got to offer him and find a spot for him.
I think especially, too, and Josh, we've talked about it a little bit, not on the podcast, but with the 2019 class, the way it's shaping up in state, it's almost like you need a couple kids from Oklahoma. I think it's a priority every year that you take kids from Oklahoma. I don't think that 2019 list of guys is too long as far as guys that probably deserve an Oklahoma offer. So I think that I'm not saying that he backdoors into one, but I think it's a guy that you want to keep around the state. If that makes sense.
Guys, you look at it. There is a very realistic chance that Oklahoma signs no one from the state of Oklahoma in 2019. Grayson Boomer's already committed to Oklahoma State. Daxton Hill, his older brother, is Oklahoma State's star running back. I mean, there's every reason to think that he'll go there. Now, I think OU has a chance with Daxton Hill. I don't want people to take that the wrong way. I'm just saying there's every reason to believe Oklahoma State would be the choice for him. Well, who's that next guy? Who does OU have to offer after that? It's just not a great year in the state. There's a lot of guys like Cole Mashburn that are good players, but they've got question marks. Where do they fit? Are they big enough? Are they fast enough? Do they fit into Oklahoma's scheme? I mean, there's a bunch of things. And I'm with you, Eddie. I'm not one of those guys that's like, you got to recruit Oklahoma, you got to recruit Texas. I don't really believe that. But I do think it's good for OU when there's a few guys in every class that it means something to them to play at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I think for Cole Mashburn, it would matter for him to play at OU. You need some guys like that. It's good for, I kind of hate morale, but I just think it helps. Even the guys that show up, Brendan Radley-Hiles, who's never been to OU Texas, probably has never even watched it. But he gets to be around guys that grew up watching this game, wanting to play in it, that sort of stuff. It gives him some perspective on the magnitude of that situation. Even screw that, just being an Oklahoma football player and what that means to people, I think it helps guys that don't have any reason to know.
Oh, no, I mean, there's no doubt that when SportsCenter runs a piece on Baker Mayfield and he has a OU jersey on at a game when he was 8 years old, that endears him to the fan base even more. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's something to it. And that's probably a different way of looking at it. But, yeah, I think there's something to it.
All right, let's talk about real quick kind of some of the things that have happened recently. I'll admit, when I saw the picture that was released by Moro Ojomo of him and Tank Jenkins, I couldn't believe how big that dude was, man. I was just like, wow.
When you consider
like
how big
Homer Simpson
Marcus
staring
Jenkins
at donuts.
is, when you know how big Jenkins is, and then you're like, I don't know. It was impressive, Josh.
Guys, you want a friendly reminder? Moro Ojomo is 16 years old.
That's insane.
He turned 16 during the season. Like, he's not even that close to 17.
I guess the biggest question be why did they wait so long for a guy like that?
Yeah,
well,
what
I think.
are you thinking? There, I'll f-bomb it. I mean,
I think
God, that kid is unbelievable.
Yeah, and I've said it for a couple podcasts in a row. Go back and watch the North Shore tape. That dude, that should have gotten him 20 offers by itself. And I can tell you from what I gather talking to North Shore folks and some of my sources, that was a huge part of Oklahoma offering him. It kind of was a deal, back in December when it didn't really look like Oklahoma was going to take another defensive lineman. There was kind of this undercurrent of this guy's too good not to take. I mean, Oklahoma almost got of the opinion, we're going to have to find some way to make this happen. And now it looks like Oklahoma may take 2 defensive linemen, as I put up in our notes earlier today.
They should. They should take 3 if they could.
I don't understand. Like, if they needed so much talent along the defensive line, why aren't you just stockpiling it? Like, I don't care if the kid has a felony. You take him.
Okay, that's a little far.
If I feel like you can improve my play, or that you can play at the level that I want to compete for national championships on the offensive line or defensive line, I frankly, I don't care what we have on campus. I don't care. Like, we will find a way to get you into school. Like, we will find a scholarship for you. It's too hard to find really talented big bodies.
Find a way to fix your grades.
Yeah, we will find. Yeah, no, I mean, compliance, cover your ears. We're getting you into school. Like that's happening. And that's the biggest fight that Oklahoma will always have to fight. And we talk about this every time, guys. They don't have, like Georgia and Alabama don't have to leave a 200-mile radius of their school to stock their 2-deep in offensive linemen and defensive linemen. OU
Yet
does.
they'll still come to Texas and steal people. Which is
exactly. So when OU has an opportunity to land an elite guy, I've never understood it, and this is not something that I'm jumping on board with OU because it looks like they would be willing to take both Ojomo and Michael Thompson. I've always felt this way. If you can get a big body that has ability,
did you call in the bag man?
Find a way to make that happen.
And you call in the bag man.
If Eddie's there. Eddie's not above it, guys. So
Eddie doesn't have the money though.
Yeah, I don't have the money.
Well, I mean, no, somebody else will have.
I'm willing
but
to
Eddie
cheat.
will carry
I just don't have the funds.
You'll carry the bag to and from. You just need the bag. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely. I don't know if I would personally do it, but I think there's.
You know a guy?
Yeah, I know some people. I know some guys.
I think we all know some guys. I think they're called Sooner Scoopers. I'm afraid that we're getting ready to start the Sooner Scooper Bagman Network, so we need to just shut up
it's already
about
been
it.
started.
Moro Ojomo, he came in for his visit. He the only thing that we really know is he tweeted out he had the time of his life over the weekend. I know you and Bob both tried. He's just not a guy, like you said, he's 16. He's not really into the whole interview stuff. But what is the word on the street, Josh, about Ojomo and where you think that he is right now in his recruiting process?
Well, coming into the weekend, I didn't give OU much of a chance. The word I had heard was he was a guy that was going to be very big on academics, and not that that's against OU, but when they're recruiting against Texas and Notre Dame, that's a tool that's going to get used against them. It just is. I think we all know that. And he's going to Notre Dame this coming weekend. The rumor was he was going to visit, or not the rumor, it was believed he was going to visit Texas for the last weekend, and that was going to be a really hard hill to kind of climb for Oklahoma. Following his official visit and then Oklahoma seeing him again, for an in-home, I don't know that I would say Oklahoma leads, but it's really, really close. I mean, that they are right there with anybody. If he committed to OU tomorrow, it wouldn't surprise me, and I don't think I would have believed that possible a week ago. So they've really turned it around. They've made him a priority. I think probably with the exception of Leon O Neal, I don't know that there's any guy that OU's pushing harder for. They really want him. They really want Michael Thompson as well, but I get the feeling if they had to pick between the two, Ojomo might be the guy. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, how much does it help that Oklahoma has had success in Katy?
Oh, I mean, there is no question that him, having a chance with Rodney Anderson. What I have heard, interestingly, is he has started. We and we'll get into this in a second with the Leon O Neal and Roy Williams stuff. I have heard that another former OU defender has befriended Ojomo. It's Chuka Ndulue.
Oh,
and
he is in Norman,
but he's on staff.
So there, yeah, you're absolutely right. So there's a connection there, but I get the impression that they've hit it off, and there's some kind of trust, you hate to assume, but there is probably some fair assumption in they have some similar background, right. Families from similar areas, that kind of thing. So I think there's probably some easy connection there, and I definitely think he likes Chuka and likes OU. He likes Calvin Thibodeau a lot. So I think Oklahoma is having to play catch-up. I mean, Texas offered him at least a month before Oklahoma did. A&M has been on him for a long time. But I can tell you from what I'm hearing, if Texas is the leader, if you want to go that way, the school that I have heard they are absolutely concerned about is Oklahoma. They think Oklahoma is a very real threat in this thing.
I can tell you that Ojomo, he came to the basketball game last Saturday while he was taking his official visit, and Chuka Ndulue was with that group, and he spent a lot of time with them. In fact, I think they sat together.
Chuka's a good dude.
Yeah, he's great.
And if memory serves me, an Arsenal fan, so an even better dude.
Yeah,
so.
He is a big soccer guy.
He's a soccer guy, unfortunately.
Hey.
I remember when we went to St. Louis for the Rivals camp, and, everybody was kind of pointing out everybody, and obviously Ronnie Perkins was one of the main guys we were there to see. But I remember, Michael Thompson being at that camp, and Josh, you were kind of shitting on him, kind of like, he's a really good player, but he's never going to qualify.
Yep.
So don't worry too much about him. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you really have to turn over every rock possible, but now Oklahoma sits here finding itself really chasing down Michael Thompson here as of late. So I guess the question is, Josh, you told me, hey, don't get burned by this kid. He's probably not going to make it. So now we sit here and OU is chasing down this kid, and everybody's like, Michael Thompson, can OU get him? And my question is, where is he if OU could land him? I mean, he's obvious. OU's making a big push socially. He seems to be reciprocating a lot there. Is this a situation where OU is just kind of hanging by a thread, hoping that maybe this kid somehow finds a way to get eligible, and they're going to put in a lot. I mean, I guess part of that is this shows you what early signing day is they can afford to kind of go out and chase this kid and maybe hope for the best.
That's exactly right. I mean, this is a situation where if there was an early signing day, OU would have to be worrying about Ronnie Perkins and having to make sure that he was still in the fold. Ron Tatum, Jordan Kelly, but they've got those guys all on board. Ronnie Perkins is already on campus, so I mean they've covered a lot of the bases they needed to. And with Thompson, like I said, as of a month ago, I had still heard that grades were a problem. He wasn't going to qualify. That was, hell, guys, that was the talk at the Army Bowl. I mean, like 2 weeks ago. And I remember it crossed my mind to go talk to him and say, hey, you heard anything from Oklahoma? Just kind of checking in. But I wrote it off. I thought, nope, there's nothing going on here. I thought, again, if Oklahoma was going to go after anybody, it was going to be Ojomo, and that was going to be it. But they've changed their tact. I mean, they're bringing him in this weekend for an official visit. Oklahoma, from what I can gather, they think he's going to qualify. And I think it's going to be close. I mean, it's one I'm sure there'll be – whoever signs him will sweat it out until May. And maybe he's a guy that even has to take a couple classes after graduation or whatever to get some turnover in his grades or whatever. But if that can happen and Oklahoma could land both of those guys, that's absurd. I mean, that's Thompson, Perkins, Tatum, Kelly, and Ojomo. That's as good a defensive line class as OU signed in a decade. I mean, probably since McCoy and Adrian Taylor back in 2006. I mean, that's the kind of group you're talking about there. So that's huge. And like I said, with Thompson, I think OU has a better shot at Ojomo right now. Missouri has a long-standing relationship with him. Obviously, Missouri's put out several, NFL draft picks in recent years, including, the guy Terry Beckner looks like he's going to be the next one at Missouri. So there's a lot of reason for Missouri to make sense for him, aside from just, they've been here longer or they're the home state school. But I think, he's a kid. He certainly understands that he can go to Missouri and maybe, just maybe, he could win an SEC West at some point or another. Or he can go to – there's my dog.
Your dog just coughed like a human.
Yes, he coughs like that. I don't know why he does that.
That is so bizarre. Can you make him do that on command?
No, he will not. That's our Australian Shepherd. I'm pretty sure he's kind of like a cat. I think he's just coughing up hairballs. I'm pretty convinced. But no, with Thompson, like I said, I think Oklahoma has a chance. They've got to just crush his visit this weekend. That's going to be it. To me, if he doesn't walk out of the official with Oklahoma, even in his mind, even if he won't say it publicly, if OU is not in front for him, it's not going to happen. I mean, Missouri just has too many bullets left to fire.
By the way, I had no idea. Like, I don't get to sit around on Saturdays usually and watch much football. I had no idea that Terry Beckner had become a stud. That dude was like 32 years old when he was in high school. Do you remember him from like rivals camps and stuff?
I remember the name.
St. Louis.
He was at the 5-Star Challenge. I want to say Chicago? Or no, it would have been Baltimore. That dude was like 32 years old, though. He was the oldest looking high school kid I'd ever seen. That's so weird, though, that he's become a stud.
Goes against my theory that 5 stars go to die in Columbia.
They've had some good ones. Sheldon Richardson had a nice
defensive
career.
Lineman.
I mean, if there's any position where Missouri can say we produce guys, it's defensive line.
Yeah, that's true.
Shane Ray was a good one. I mean, you go down the list. They've had some really good defensive line. I mean, now so much is built on a guy that's not there right now, the Kugelowski guy. But that's another argument. But like I said, Beckner. I think if Beckner could have been healthy this year, he'd have I don't think he announced for the draft.
I think he's coming back.
Yeah. But I mean, he's one of those guys that next year, if he can just stay healthy and have a good year, he'll be a first-round pick.
Okay, so you mentioned him earlier, and this is kind of one of OU's biggest. And I think it's one of those things where, we didn't really know what to expect, and it seemed like it picked up steam. And now you kind of wonder exactly where OU is, and we're talking about Leon O Neal. But it seems like, I don't know, just from looking on the outside in, it's kind of a OU A&M battle. Is that how you see it playing out, Josh?
I do. Georgia and Clemson, he still said he's going to take official visits there, and he may even be taking one this weekend. I would be lying if I said I'm for sure about his visit this weekend. But with Leon, I don't know. Like, I just struggle to see him getting that far away from home, doing all, especially with A&M, he has the comfort in College Station. He knows the town so well, even if he's learning the new staff. With Oklahoma, he's got all the human connection. I mean, DaShaun White, Buki, Kerry Cooks, Mike Stoops, Lincoln Riley. I mean, there's just a lot of people he's very familiar with and very comfortable with in Norman. And I just think it's going to come down to those two. Right now, I'm picking Oklahoma, but it's close. I mean, I think either one of the schools is a possibility, and I wouldn't rule out Georgia or Clemson. I mean, there's a Hail Mary element for the national runner-up and, last year's national champion. They can certainly do a lot to impress a guy. But I just think in the end it probably comes down to those two, I guess, more regional schools. And I just kind of like where Oklahoma's at because of the relationship between himself and White, and I think that matters a lot. And to go back just a bit, Ronnie Perkins, his relationship with Michael Thompson is going to be a big deal. So that it's usually in years past, I feel like Oklahoma's had some bad breaks where guys that maybe they were going to get ended up going somewhere else because a school landed a player that was a friend or a buddy or whatever. And this year, I feel like there's much more of it's kind of broken in OU's favor.
I mean, with O'Neal, obviously, we haven't even brought this up, but it seems like Kerry Cooks has kind of been the main guy that's spearheaded his recruiting. A&M is kind of taking kind of with everybody. They're trying to overwhelm everyone with their staff and just sending everyone at one time. And we can talk about the DaShaun White situation and what's developing there. But it doesn't even seem like OU has kind of really put the big guns to O'Neal yet. I mean, you haven't really seen that that full court press. It doesn't seem with him yet.
No, I think with Leon, like, it's just, I think Oklahoma's played it smart. I don't think they've pushed too hard. I think maybe in early December there was some talk, and it's funny because it was the same talk that was going on around DaShaun White at the same point, that Oklahoma was pushing a little too hard, and it was making not necessarily Leon or DaShaun uncomfortable, but some of the people around them uncomfortable. I think Oklahoma kind of took a step back, and obviously there was always a feeling that DaShaun might sign early or might decide early. So OU went in and did their in-home, and they really sold him. With Leon, I think the expectation's always been that he was going to run this for a while, especially when he decommitted from A&M. And so Oklahoma just kind of tapped the brakes and let Kerry kind of be the lead, let him handle it, and then they'll bring in Lincoln Riley. They'll do all that stuff here at the end and then try to really close him just with kind of the sell of, all of us. You can come into my office. You know me. You can go into Kerry's office. You can go into Mike's office. DaShaun might be your roommate. Buki, I mean, you and Buki can start together in the secondary next year. I mean, there's just a lot for OU to sell.
No, seriously,
him.
You guys could probably start. Just you got to sign on the dotted line.
Well, it's one of those things where you always hear the pitch.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, Radley Hiles is the better player, but he's got a bigger hill to climb than Leon does, just because I like more of what OU returns at corner than I do at safety.
No doubt. It's
it's one of those rare pitches that actually is probably true.
Yeah.
Well, and look, you mentioned the whole things playing in Oklahoma's favor. I got to think that Texas A&M they're trying to now come in on DaShaun White because they know probably, hey, if we can get DaShaun White turned, we could probably get Leon O Neal too. And Josh, if you could, you put it up this morning on the notes, but A&M now going in trying to make a last-ditch effort to turn DaShaun White now.
Yeah, this whole deal is one of the strangest I can remember. Actually, another very funny one has just come up, and we'll cover that here in a second, but we'll stick with DaShaun White. A&M, from what I can gather from DaShaun, did not schedule anything. They didn't plan. Like, it wasn't even like they attempted to. They just showed up at his door to do an in-home visit. I've never heard of that in my whole life. Because the reality is, if they show up and he says no, they're done for that week. Even if they don't get in the door, the fact that they had face-to-face contact, it's over. They can't. So DaShaun let him in. I talked to him last night. He told me, he was like, it was crazy. It was kind of weird. You know, like you could tell he was just kind of blown away by the fact that they did it. And like I talked about in the notes, for A&M to make that move says a lot about how desperate they are in the situation. Yeah. Like I feel like it's pretty clear they're not making any headway with him. And so they kind of threw a Hail Mary to see if they could pull something off. Now, I know he told some A&M sites that, you know, Mike Elko, that obviously the new defensive coordinator, was one of the visitors. And he said, oh, you know, he made some good points. But I didn't get the impression that it did anything to change where DaShaun is. I think as long as nothing changes with Oklahoma staff, he's going to sign with Oklahoma. Like, I just don't have a lot of doubt about him. When he committed, he'd been wanting to commit for a month. I just don't think that's going to change. It wasn't like he just woke up one day and decided Oklahoma. He knew what he wanted to do, and he finally did it. So it's a really weird story. It's a really funny story. It kind of reminds me, and it's funny because it's also an A&M story, and it's one I've told a bunch of times.
I know what you're
when A&M came into the in-home with Adrian Peterson,
and
Adrian sat back in his room while his parents did the in-home. Like, I've never heard of that happening either. So it's just funny how that particular school kind of ends up in these situations. But I don't think there's a lot to worry about with A&M right now.
You know what's funny is I knew you were going to mention that story.
Yeah.
And that was right before you and I were working together.
Yep.
And I actually remember calling him while Texas A&M coaches were in his house and he was hiding in his bedroom. And he was like, yeah, they're here. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm just in my bedroom. They're in the living room. I don't want anything to do with them.
There can't be anything more degrading as a coach when you show up at a guy's house and he won't even come out and talk to you.
Especially a guy you want that bad.
Yeah.
Like, you knew, like, because he was one of those dudes, like, it wasn't like, well, if things pan out for him, it's like, if he keeps both of his ACLs, he's going to be a first-round pick.
Like, are you knocking on the door? Will you come out,
and I'm telling
please?
you, Adrian, I'd been to his house. He was not. He didn't live in a big house. It was a very tiny house. There were not many rooms in that house. Like, the living room was not even as big as my office, I don't think.
It's too funny, and it couldn't happen to a better school.
God, who was the coach then? Was it Francione?
Yeah. No.
He put it in the newsletter?
I forgot about the Francione newsletter. No, I mean, the thing about DaShaun White is I'm glad it hasn't caused too much panic up to this point because he tweets a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff that people want to read into or you could read into, which is just like, I'm not even looking at his Twitter account, but it is a lot of stuff. I failed to take him off of notifications after the U.S. Army game, so I see everything that he puts out there. But there's a lot of things been weighing on my mind. I gotta stick to my decisions, or things like that. And you're just like, oh no, fans are gonna start freaking out if they start trying to read into his tweets.
I'm so far out of the music scene these days that I don't know if what
stuff
some
are
of the
lyrics,
stuff, or lyrics that I've just never heard of, or if it actually means anything.
Like, Jay Billis is tweeting out lyrics every morning.
I think he just makes that stuff up.
I think it's lyrics.
I think he just makes it up because it always ends with "I got to go to work."
Yeah,
I think
I
he's
like
just
it.
making it up.
I enjoy it.
Jay Billis is kind of a douchebag, but
What?
I like him. I mean, he's a douchebag that you can like. He went to Duke.
Oh, he's a douchebag for sure.
Yeah.
But,
I don't
like
this discussion. I like.
I respect what he does.
No, yeah, I think he's great.
He's very
one of those guys, like,
pro athlete.
He does shit to piss you off, and he doesn't care that it pisses you off.
He is a Duke elitist, is what he is.
How can you say that? All he does is promote the fact that the NCAA are a bunch of crooks.
Well, I mean, Hitler was a bad guy. Does that mean that I'm really pointing something out that's true, or I mean that's not truthful?
But he's anti-Hitler.
He probably should be. I think he's Jewish.
All right, we're going in a weird direction here.
That took a turn.
So anyway, let's talk about this. Josh, as far as official visits that are coming up, I mean, you mentioned Michael Thompson. What else is out there, if anything, in terms of OU and official visits?
There is not a ton out there. Now, what's interesting are some of the names that haven't really surfaced yet. I'm going to go over several in the scoop tomorrow. I don't want to steal something from our subscribers, but there will be some new names. There are some guys that it will not surprise me if they take an official visit here over the next couple of weeks, including another one on the defensive line. I mean, Oklahoma is, from everything I can tell, dead set on taking at least one more defensive lineman, and if they're the right two guys, they'll take two. So there's another guy, I'll say committed to a Power 5 program that will be mentioned in the scoop tomorrow. So there's some stuff happening out there that is going to be really interesting to follow. I guess to further tease just a little bit, well, I won't go too far because I know it drives some people crazy. You mentioned Jeremiah Hall and who's going to be that next jumbo athlete. I can tell you of at least one guy that Oklahoma is talking to. There is a guy from a guy that's SEC region guy, got a lot of good offers, and Oklahoma is taking a long look at him. So, and again, he'll be mentioned by name, all that good stuff in the scoop tomorrow. And like I said, Oklahoma's working on some things. This is not they're just riding this out to the finish. They are prepared. And I talked about this in a notes thread earlier this week. It looks very much like Oklahoma is going in a very NFL draft direction right now. They've got a few, clearly on the defensive line, like I said, they want one more. I think with that exception, it's just best available. Wherever it may be, they want the best available guy. I think Leon O Neal's probably at the top of that list, and then I think Ojomo's probably second. I think Tank Jenkins is probably third. And then after that, I think there's a bunch of directions it could go, and Oklahoma's going to be fine with that because, like I said, it's more about we really like you and think you can help us more so than, well, we have to take, X guy because we need a body at this position. To me, defensive line is the only position where it's clear that Oklahoma seems to think they need one more guy.
Yeah, Lincoln's been asked a couple of times, like what his number is in this class. And I've always thought it was kind of strange because he's never wanted to really talk about it, which leads me to believe that that's pretty close to that 25. Like they're pretty close. What do you think the number is, Josh, the most that they could take in this class?
I've been for a while. I haven't really gone north of 25, which leaves you two more than what they have right now. I think in the right situation, it could be 26. I don't think that's crazy. And if they just hit the jackpot and say Leon wanted to come, Tank Jenkins wanted to come, and the two defensive linemen wanted to come, I don't see OU saying no to that.
Processed.
I don't believe it. Now,
I want to be in the room when they process kids.
Exactly. I mean, like that, guys. That's what's going to happen. I mean,
it has to happen. If you want to win a national championship, you have to start processing kids.
We're sorry, A.D. Miller. Your time is over.
And it sounds bad right now, and we can get into it. But like the Jordan Austin thing, I just want to take him. I'm sorry.
To me, and we've talked about this. You've got to sit down and just tell Lancaster, look, he wasn't even all district. I don't think he was first, second, or third team all district. You guys know the deal here. You know we shouldn't be bound to this. You know he's not on our level. What can we do to make this right? You got a couple underclassmen you like? we'll offer those guys, and of course you're going to take it with a grain of salt. But Lancaster is not a place full of unreasonable coaches. They know what these kids are. They've been around big time talent. They know who is and who isn't. And to me, I think more and more it's becoming Jordan Austin hears all this stuff, and I think there's a growing sentiment that he just wants to go and prove people wrong. Now, in my opinion, he never will. He's going to waste his time, and he could go. If I'm him, I'm going to go JUCO and then try to figure something else out. But I think he's got it in his head that he can go play with anybody, and he's going to compete with some of these other guys. And like I said, I've seen him. I've talked to him. I want to be clear to Oklahoma fans that think this is just media agenda. There are a lot of people that don't think Jordan Austin can play at Oklahoma. I mean, a lot. And it's not just people that you can write off as, well, they're media and they don't know what they're talking about.
Here's the thing to me. If you cut a kid loose and you're Oklahoma, really, to me, it's what's going to speak loudest is where he ends up. Like, if you cut him loose and he ends up at Texas State and you are you're the Lancaster staff, how are you going to hold that against Oklahoma? I guess the biggest thing is you've waited too long and they're going to hold that against you. They're going to be like, well, if you would have let him go before his senior year, then maybe you would have had a chance to find a better landing spot. Like, the longer you drag it out, the more it's just going to hurt you. It seems like to me. Because whether it's his family or coaches or friends, all they're going to do is just say, well, Oklahoma strung him out so long he couldn't find a better place to land, when he just can't find a better place to land.
I still don't know what happened. I don't know why he got the offer when he did. I don't know why it happened the way it did. The whole thing was very weird. It felt a little like OU almost got caught up in the moment. He took that visit, and and obviously he was spending all that time with his brother, and Dakota was going into the year Dakota was going to start, and it was the whole, I don't know, like, it just felt like OU got swept up in the moment a little bit and made a decision they shouldn't have made.
Yeah, we got to get his brother.
They've never been able to get out of it.
It's like we got to get his brother who's bigger than him before everybody else jumps on him, and we're gonna.
You guys have seen him. He's what I mean, physically, he looks great. But when you go watch him play, and I saw him even before the knee injury and was like, that's the guy? Because the Dakota was the flip. Dakota didn't look like anything, but every time you watch him, all he did was make plays. He was a good football player. He just wasn't big enough. Jordan is the prototype, but doesn't do anything anytime I've ever watched him.
They put themselves in a really tight spot.
They did.
It could be worse. You could be in a lot worse situations, but
yeah.
At the same time, I don't know. This probably sounds bad, but Lancaster's not exactly IMG. They're not Bishop Gorman. I think you could get away, and I think that people would probably be pissed at the time. But as you said, Josh, those coaches aren't idiots down there. They're a good program. Yep. They know what they are.
It's not, and I know people, and Eddie, you're not wrong. Like, I understand that people are like, it's Lancaster's not IMG, and I get that. But Lancaster's connected to Cedar Hill and DeSoto, and it's all together. Bigger,
and with the way that my impression of the Texas High School Association and the coaches, it's not you don't want to start poking around all. You hurt one of them, it seems like you hurt all of them, because it might be the softest group of individuals in the entire world. But I said it, you didn't.
No, I mean, it's a very fraternal group, man. They don't want anybody messing with what they believe in and what they do. They don't play around about that stuff. So that's, like I said, we'll see what happens, but I just have this feeling that he's going to end up signing with Oklahoma. But the thing about it is, and we talked a little bit about processing a second ago, I don't think it matters as much as everyone thinks it does.
Yeah.
Like, there are plenty of guys that are on the roster that already know they're not a part of the plan that OU can, nicely, I guess if you want, shove out the door. Ricky DeBerry, Marcellus Sutton. I mean, you go down the list. Alex Dalton, Alex Dalton's not part of the plan anymore. Quinn Mittermeier, that guy's a senior. Him and Dalton, I mean, you're talking about guys, if you don't play this year, you're never going to play a meaningful snap of college football. Wouldn't you like to go to UCO or somewhere closer to where, in Sutton or Dalton's case, somewhere closer to home? I mean, I get that it's harsh. Prentice McKinney's another one. OU's never even bothered to redshirt Prentice McKinney. They've got him on the fast track off the roster. Would you like to go somewhere and actually play, man, and do something, or do you just want to sit here and do nothing? And to me, if you're going to do nothing, well then we'll give you a bum knee injury, and you can finish out your college education, and we can go sign somebody else.
I'd say that's cool. You can send me somewhere else, but you damn sure better send me all the Jordan Brand gear.
Yeah, maybe there's an under the table agreement. So.
You know what? What's bizarre is what you just talked about is Alex Dalton actually was a starter last year when the season began.
Yep. And when's the last time you heard his name? I mean, you guys were there.
Well, after that Houston game, he sucked. So.
Yep. Well,
he kind of
go back and look at him in that game. You watch that Houston game, he was the one guy that you're like, God, he looks little out there. He looks like a baby compared to all those big guys.
He's got stick legs.
Yep.
He's a weird dude.
And I thought Dalton was a good player. I do. But, who's Dalton going to overturn? Humphrey, Ford, Powers?
No.
Or Samia? Hell no. None of those guys.
By the way, the most bizarre thing that happened on the message board yesterday is when I posted my Creed Humphrey interview from the Rose Bowl, and that thread turned into a fight about Brian LePack versus Ty Darlington.
Jesus Christ.
Did you even notice that? I just went and looked at it last night, because in the interview, Eddie, you remember this? He was talking about Ty Darlington and how much he helps him, and that he's on staff, and he was a center. And then all of a sudden, somebody was like, "Motherfucker, you forgot about Brian LePack. He's the smartest sumbitch that's ever been at OU." I think Brian LePack went to law school, but yeah, he is now back on staff, as a QC or GA or something. But Brian LePack never played or started at center for Lincoln Riley. Why are you fighting about Brian LePack?
Meanwhile, Austin Woods is just sitting there hey, I'm here too.
Yeah, why no Austin Woods love?
Offensive lineman, the smartest of the group. It's the smartest spot on the roster. There's no question.
That was the weirdest thing, though, that I've seen in a while. That spawned a Brian LePack versus Ty Darlington fight.
It's better than fighting about Mike Stoops, so actually we're probably making progress.
I would rather have that. By the way, we haven't mentioned OU does have a new strength coach, which that was one of the stranger threads and most awesome threads that's ever been on the Sooner Scoop, is a scooper actually being at the Embassy Suites the morning that Bennie Wylie was meeting with the coaches, obviously announcing that he was going to be the guy, and made Eddie very proud to have some private investigator level type shots.
I know. I was saying on the way down to the basketball game, I should have stopped at Embassy, but little did we know that we had moles already out there doing God's work.
It was impressive.
Next time, just get a piss sample. You got to go in after they get to the restroom and get them before the water goes down the drain. Taylor Ham reporting 101.
So Bennie Wylie is the new strength and conditioning coach. Now he's got just it's an interesting story. We haven't spoken to him yet, but I have to think that is a little bit of an upgrade in personality from Jerry Schmidt.
You mean you don't see Jerry Schmidt going on NBC to do reality shows?
No, I don't. I don't really see Jerry Schmidt ever doing anything that involves a camera or microphone.
No. Probably not.
I think I probably talked to Jerry Schmidt, including the time I ran into him in a Homeland supermarket. I think I talked to him 4 times while he was at OU in 18 years.
I just took the assumption, don't look at him. Don't stare at him. Don't even get video of him. He might break your camera.
He was into training, and that was what he did. And it started this whole big thing, like with all the former players. I know, like, I talked to Dusty a lot about it, Dvorak, talked to Gabe Eichert about it a lot, but just kind of, after Schmidt left, all those guys were in a panic, and they were like, "Oh, OU, how could they do this? How could they lose him? Like, he's the biggest reason why OU has had success." And I understood where they're coming from. Like, and they all say this, and I can see how it's believable, but the second most important person in a football program is the strength and conditioning guy. Like, that's a cliche, but it's probably, I don't want to sit there and belittle that people believe that, but at the same time, I'm just thinking, he's a strength coach. He's not an offensive coordinator. He's not calling plays on game day. Like, what he does is very important, but are you telling me that if you lose a strength coach that is really good, that you can't get another strength coach that is really good? Like, it seems to me that those guys are out there.
That's basically what they're saying.
And that's my whole deal with it. Like, it's exercise, guys. Like, I understand it's really evolved exercise and there's some science to it and
what is
that sort of thing.
What's
but
the
it can be learned.
Not trying to be the best
the
at
Kenny
exercising.
Powers thing, yeah.
Yeah, like it can be learned. I can't teach someone to be a play caller like Lincoln Riley. I can't teach someone to have that instinct and that skill for when is the right moment to attack, when is not. I can teach you kinesiology. I can teach, we can work on that stuff. Like, and that's not to say, like, I don't want to belittle. I'm with you, Kerry. I don't want to make it like it's not a big deal because, to me, what's so big about the strength and conditioning staff is they spend more time with those guys than anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody. And that's a
well,
big
here's their
deal.
biggest. To me, this is Jerry Schmidt. This was always Jerry Schmidt's, and this was back and forth. It was whether he was doing a good job or not was whether guys were quitting in the offseason. Like, your one of your main job is to train guys, to build them up, to make them explosive, to not make them too big and bulky. All that stuff. I mean, all that stuff's been discussed forever on the message boards, on the Crimson Corner. But the other main job is just making sure that guys don't quit, like that you don't run them off because you're such a hard ass that you're making people quit.
I think that there's it's the strength and conditioning coach, and I put this on the board, I think. It's like 1/3 counselor, 1/3 actual strength and conditioning coach, and then 1/3 like being a guy's best friend and a guy that he can talk to outside of the coaching staff. It's like you have to find that medium, and I think that's why all the players kind of endeared themselves to Jerry Schmidt, because he did do that. But I think at the same time, kind of like the Bob Stoops thing, 19 years is a long time.
Yeah.
At some point, you want to get some new blood in there. And, I think in a perfect world, everybody would still like to have Schmitty around. But at the same time, who knows?
But remember,
change is good sometimes.
There was some transition periods for Schmitty. Josh remembers this. There was a time when OU could not keep offensive linemen in the program. And a lot of guys were quitting during the offseason. And it was always cussed and discussed about what is Schmitty doing in terms of how he's training these guys. Is he being too hard on them? Is he making them run too much? Is he not making them run enough? Why can't he change his ways and make it easier on those guys? I mean, Josh, you remember those times.
Oh, yeah. I mean, guys, 01 and 02, that roster could barely keep a 2 deep of offensive linemen. And then even then, it wasn't a very good 2 deep.
Between Mark Mangino and Kevin Wilson and Jerry Schmidt, they were making life living hell on offensive linemen at OU.
Yep. I mean, the guys who survived it were really good. Jamal Brown, Wes Sims, you go down that Vince Carter. There were a lot of good players in that group. But if any of those guys got hurt, OU had no answer for it. And
I still remember to this day, we were at summer camp, and Duncan, Oklahoma's own Dylan Dismute committed to Oklahoma right there on the field. And I knew that he was doomed because his dad, maybe he said this to both of us, Josh, or maybe he said it to you and you relayed it to me. But his dad told one of us, yeah, he's committed, but he's scared to death of Jerry Schmidt. And, like, he did not make it until fall camp. He quit before his first summer was over because Jerry Schmidt scared the living piss out of him and just quit football.
Made it further than Dalton Wood, so congrats.
He quit in such, neck-breaking fashion that his younger brother, I think, who was a pretty good player.
Yeah, he was.
And probably should have been recruited, was largely just passed over. Like, everyone's like, nope, he ain't going to make it either. And I'm not talking about OU. Like, no one recruited him. But I really think his older brother and how quickly he quit had an impact on it. They're like, yeah, he's going to be the same story. So
I just remember it started with Adam Carpenter, and then it didn't end for about, it seemed like 6 years.
Oh, my God, Adam Carpenter. I haven't thought of that name in forever.
I think Adam Carpenter just, like, quit in the middle of a practice because he was like, F you, Mangino, I'm out of here.
Yeah, he pulled the, what's the Dave Chappelle movie that I'm thinking, the Pothead movie where they're dealing.
Half-Baked?
Yeah, he did the guy at the fast food restaurant. F you, I'm out. So, no, but, Kerry, and that's the thing. Like, we always hear these guys that like, oh, Schmidt, blah, blah. There are plenty of guys who are a little more soft-spoken that aren't so glowing about everything that is Jerry Schmidt. Like, I think those who, completely bought in and did all the things he wanted, and like Damian said in that post that we've referenced a few times, that were kind of his guys, they all love it. But there's plenty of guys, and I'm not talking about dudes that transferred. I get that those guys are going to have grievances and beef, but I'm talking about guys that went through the program that didn't exactly love all their interactions. I mean, and not that they should. I mean, it's an S&C coach. I know he's going to push you, but they lived on the other side of that coin and didn't feel like they always got the fairest of shakes.
Does anybody remember that Jerry Schmidt went out of his way to talk shit on Trent Williams? I think it was the Washington Post.
A lot of belief there that he was involved in the Tony Jefferson stuff, too.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember something with
Basically
Trent
said
Williams.
that he was allergic to working hard. That's what Jerry Schmidt said about a guy. And, like, Trent Williams, like, he is now back to where he's around the program again.
Yeah.
But for a long time, he didn't want anything to do with OU.
He was down in Dallas at the Big 12 championship game.
Wearing the weirdest pants I've ever seen.
And one of a side story on that, funny thing, like, they are sticklers about having credentials and stuff down there.
He had
Trent
nothing.
Williams had nothing on.
He just walked in.
Like somebody's like, say something to me. I'm going to crush you if you question my authority here.
No, but I mean, Trent Williams, like, they had to drag him. Basically, Jerry Schmidt had to drag him through workouts. So, I mean, look, I think the main thing is, and everybody's like, "Oh, Jerry Schmidt changed my life," and yes, I'm sure he did. But if Jerry Schmidt had another name, would it just be him? Like, if it were another strength coach, like, these high school kids have no idea how hard you have to work in college, and I don't think that's exclusive to OU or Jerry Schmidt. I think anytime any kid goes to a college strength and conditioning program, it's life changing for them because they've never been through anything like that. If it were, and again, I feel like I'm crapping on Jerry Schmidt, and that's not my intent here.
Oh, well, him, he's gone.
Hold on, let me mark that.
I'm gonna run into him in a restroom and like somewhere in Texas.
Hey, big dog.
It's gonna be like one of those movies. Hey, big dog, you talking shit on me?
You'll run into
and
him
then I'm gonna shit myself
at a Buc-ee's.
Yeah,
next to Josh,
definitely
where he's arguing with Gabe Eichard, the who is marrying into the Love family. Way to go on that.
I want it to be noted. I with Gabe, I understand why he takes, why he would prefer Loves. If he wasn't marrying very, very wisely for his future, there's just no competition, man.
He'll tell you he'll tell you this. He had no choice in the matter. He's just like, Caroline just said, "You're my boyfriend. We're getting married." Like, he was just caught up in a whirlwind.
That's the way this stuff goes.
Yeah, she's a love. She just, like, gets what she wants, and she wanted Gabe Eichard, so he's just fortunate.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're
Tough
fighting.
deal, Gabe.
You're fighting with the
I don't
Loves.
like Buc-ee's.
You're fighting with the Loves family about how much better Buc-ee's. You're fighting with people about Quick Trip, and that it ain't shit.
Quick Trip's madness. The love affair of Quick Trip is baffling. It makes no sense.
What it is, it's because
Quick Tricks
they
loves
aren't in
Buc-ee's.
Oklahoma City.
Any of them want to sponsor the
Everyone
podcast,
in
we will be
Oklahoma,
open to it.
everyone in Oklahoma City really wishes that they had Quick Trip, so they romanticize it into some great. You're right. It's just a fill-up station.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice guy. Like I'm not like Buc-ee's is almost unfair. They pay their guys like it's insane. They pay them almost double minimum wage. Like they're gonna have better employees that do better things because they pay their people really well.
I've never been
and so
into
everything's
a Buc-ee's.
clean and well kept and it's a really nice thing. It's almost like not a gas station.
Yeah, Gabe, I've never been into a Buc-ee's, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah,
We're Loves people.
And that like I don't
Unless Buc-ee's wants to sponsor the
Robinson's
podcast.
beef jerky alone. Like they could have poo on the walls, and I'll still get the Robinson's beef jerky as long as it's sealed. But
That stuff is overrated.
oh, you're mad. That's some of the finest beef jerky.
Give
in the
me
world.
Oberto any day of the week.
Oh God, Kerry. For a guy who's a foodie, like good food, you eat some awful stuff. El Phoenix, Oberto. I mean, you have some weird.
Oberto is the Cadillac of the beef jerky.
Oh God,
it's the Cadillac of the name brand beef jerky. It's so much better than Jack Link's.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I wouldn't eat any of that stuff. It's all awful.
That Robertson stuff is just hard, rip your teeth. I mean, Eddie would lose all of his teeth if he had to eat that beef jerky.
Eddie, do you have bad teeth?
I have perfect teeth, besides the time that I knocked my tooth out.
Which was recently. Just eating a peppermint.
Or
And
chewing on a straw, one of the two.
And his tooth just crumbled.
It did.
His front tooth.
It was really messed up.
Guys, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the DaShaun White thing, a funny story that I just cannot leave out. And I posted something about it on the board. About half an hour ago, R.J. Henderson, the 5-star wide receiver in 2019, who is expected to be there for Junior Day this weekend and is also a one-time OU commitment, he tweets out that he got a Tennessee offer. No big deal. I don't know if you guys remember, because I sent it to you privately a few days ago, when he blasted the Tennessee coach who had made fun of guys asking for new followers and that sort of thing. So it's funny how this, like, in recruiting, like, these relationships that can't be mended, well, that one got mended in, like, 3 days.
Yeah.
And now the kid has an offer from Tennessee. And he's one of those guys that coach was bagging on because he's always looking for followers.
Maybe more so than I can remember. It seems like the 2019 group of kids, they love them some Twitter attention. And that, to put it point blank like that, that's saying a lot because these kids love their attention. But it seems like this group of 2019 kids maybe more so than others.
Which I don't understand the clamoring for followers when you're not committed. Because does it just not strike kids that none of those people are going to follow you after you commit somewhere? Like
I don't
they're
think so.
they're
I don't think it
meaningless.
does.
They're meaningless followers. They're not really there for you unless you choose their school.
Who was the coach that offered him at Tennessee?
I don't know.
That guy might be soft.
I can say the thing is, even if they do offer you, they do follow you, you're gonna wish they didn't, because when you choose Alabama over Tennessee, those Tennessee fans are not gonna just go quietly into the night. They are gonna rip you apart.
Oh, you mean the fan base?
Garbage.
You mean the fan base that wanted Greg Schiano to go to prison will treat a 16-year-old kid nicely?
It's
Or won't
amazing,
treat 'em?
like that. There's not a lot of, well, I mean, when you're being led by Clay Travis, there's no room for any sort of, brain power.
That's true too.
All right, Josh, anything else you want to get out there on the recruiting trail before we get out of here?
No, I mean, like I said, we've covered most everything. There's only a few bases. I mean, I guess, we could, I guess, hit a couple of the highlights of Junior Day. Some of the guys are going to be there. But, I mean, we can do more of that next week. I will say, really, Theo Weiss won't be there. He's one of the guys that I think is really considering a decision. One of the guys that hasn't confirmed definitively that he'll be there, but I think there's a good chance of it, is Marcus Stripling, the defensive end from Mady Creek, in Houston, that OU is making a big run at. I really think they are really making some headway. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good players. Marcel Brooks, R.J. Henderson that we just talked about, E.J. Ndoma Ogar, who was the MVP of the Army Combine a few weeks ago, Austin Stogner, the big-time tight end commitment that really impressed a lot of people at the Under Armour Future 50 event right before the Under Armour game. Stacy Wilkins, a big-time offensive lineman from Arkansas. I mean, so there's a lot of good guys, and that's the thing. You know, you guys can remember, we talked a little bit about how things have changed, but years ago, Oklahoma would have 60 guys, and there might be 10 that mattered. Every guy they bring into these junior days, they're legit dudes. Now, they may not all end up with an OU offer, but these are guys that are going to go major Power 5 programs. I mean, these are guys that have Florida offers, Arkansas offers, Georgia offers. You know, you go, Ohio State, you go down the list. There are a lot of obviously really, really talented guys on this list.
I feel like, our last podcast was kind of we were in a much different place, and it's amazing how different a week changes things, or how different things can be after a week. But you remember, like our last podcast, it was a should Mike Stoops still have a job podcast. Like, that seems so long ago now from everything that's been happening. And some of this Kerry Cook stuff was floating around out there. It's still, I mean, to me, yeah, you're still kind of in a little bit of a wait and see approach with what happens with all the coaches. I think once Lincoln Riley kind of announces what's going to be, I'm not going to say this is definite, but I would think that once Lincoln Riley announces his 10th assistant, that probably tells us that the staff is intact for next year. I just feel like that's kind of where this is headed. Like the whole
they better sell full body armor to games next year for some of these coaches if there's a couple of these guys back. Like, I think there could be physical attacks on them during games.
Look, I haven't changed my
fans.
I really haven't changed my position on things. I mean, no, Mike hasn't done a good job. If he got fired, I could understand why. But, and DaShaun White, you need to get him to sign. But man, if Tim Kish is still here,
yeah, but you know what? If they get DaShaun White, that's a lot of Kish. So I guess, but still, the one guy doesn't outweigh the 7 that he's missed out on.
And it's one guy, though. I mean, It's not.
Oh, DaShaun White has to win a Lombardi.
Nick Bonito is not Tim Kish's.
No.
And the one guy is a good one, but it's not like he just signed, Baron Browning.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I the Kerry Cook stuff, that's kind of just been in the ether almost. It's like there's no one's told me, yeah, they told Kerry Cooks he needs to leave. But just everything that has transpired, whether it's the smoke around the A&M job, him following Notre Dame coaches, it just seems like he knows, like, okay, maybe and maybe it's just as simple as he feels like Mike Stoops might be on the way out. Maybe it's just that.
If OU wouldn't have made a playoff, if they wouldn't have won the Big 12, would there already have been actions?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So basically by them succeeding and OU fans cheering for
But they succeeded
champion.
For a reason. I mean, you have to give those guys credit for their success.
No, there's no doubt about that, but it's just kind of ironic and kind of funny that with all the success that Oklahoma had, it actually hurt your chances of seeing a lot of turnover to date.
That's such a weird, debate, though.
That's how f***ed up and how weird these people think.
You had success, so
you're basing the success off. What is the record of that team if they have a middle of the road college football offense? 7-5.
Maybe. They don't beat
But what
Texas.
does the success of the offense just carrying your dead corpse through the season have to do with anything? That defense was useless for a huge part of the year.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were. And that's
I'm
why
not-
And I
just
agree,
not-
they need an upgrade in personnel, but again, it's the same thing I always come back to. That's like getting mad about like the chef blaming someone else when he picked all the food and he cooked it. This is your personnel. This is who you recruited. This is what you brought in, and this is who you coached.
Yeah.
What are you mad about?
I will say this, and I think Lincoln Riley, and I've said this, I've talked about this before, but Lincoln Riley is obviously making a concerted effort to slow the tempo a little bit, to try and limit plays, to give his defense a chance. And the thing is, if your offense is middle of the road, you're not scoring 3-play, 50-second drives left and right. Like, your defense isn't out on the field as much. Like, Iowa State, they can play a certain way defensively that Oklahoma or Oklahoma State can't, because Oklahoma and Oklahoma State have such explosive offenses. Their defenses are at a disadvantage. You can't, to me, you cannot judge OU and OSU's defenses the same way that you can TCU's. Because TCU is more of a ball control. Even though they're spread, they're still more of a ball control offense than what OU and OSU are. And they're less of an explosive offense. Where, like OSU, they can. How many one-play drives did they have throwing 80-yard bombs to James Washington?
Oh, a ton. And,
Like,
and you're right. They were number 8 in the conference in time of possession. Oklahoma State was. You want to know who was number 1?
Iowa State?
Oklahoma.
Yeah. Okay, so
Iowa State
argument
was 5.
My argument totally is blown out of the water.
I just nuked you. I really didn't mean to. Like, I was
But no,
interested to
that's
start
what I'm
talking about it. I
saying.
was like,
Lincoln
let's see.
Riley made an effort to
Yep.
control the ball more this year than I've ever seen him. Once he became head coach, it's like he understands what he has to do. But you can't say, I mean, you look at drives times. I mean, possession, yes, but Josh, you have to admit, Oklahoma had a lot of short, explosive drives. 3-play drives, 4-play
They
drives.
did. I mean, Oklahoma got the ball back frequently. So
I'm sure those times of possession probably are skewed, though, when you end the game on a 15 play,
Oh,
9
sure.
No,
9-minute
Lincoln,
drive.
the one thing he did, it wasn't as much, controlling the ball as it was when he got a lead at the end of games, he grinded it out.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest difference
yeah.
in him being the head coach and offensive coordinator versus him just being the offensive coordinator.
And you can do that, though, when you have a really good offensive
But
line.
look, I'm not here to make excuses for the defense. I know that's what I'm doing. I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, it's not all apples to apples. Like when you compare OU and OSU and their defense to, like Navy or something, it's not the same type of compare. And I wish that people would look at it that way. It's kind of as much as I'm against like analytics and all that stuff, it is if you look at it analytically, there's a big difference between playing defense at some of the schools in the Big 12. And I think the bowl games show that out. I mean, look at Georgia. If Georgia had to play defense in the Big 12, I think we'd all agree they wouldn't be seen as such a revered defense after watching what Oklahoma did to them in the Rose Bowl.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, that first half, Georgia was just on skates. I mean, they looked as bad as a lot of Big 12 defenses.
Yeah.
I didn't think they offered any more, if you asked me Georgia in the first half or TCU, I'd take TCU 8 days a week.
But they're used to playing against that kind of stuff.
Yep. No, and that's Georgia made good adjustments at halftime. There's no question.
They just started kicking OU's ass after halftime up front.
Well, it's amazing how much winning up front matters. Because in the fourth quarter, OU's offensive line kind of got it going again. All of a sudden, OU started moving the ball again.
You know what was amazing is and I think I said this before, what's amazing is you watch the national championship game and Georgia's defensive line other guys were the guys that were standouts. Like was Tyler Cox, was that the guy's name? The 52? Like
Tyler Clark.
He didn't do anything really against Alabama. Their interior offensive line was so much better than Oklahoma's, yet kind of with Alabama, we don't talk about this, but like Alabama and SEC teams, their edges aren't as good in that conference. Like Alabama almost historically has all these, highly regarded tackles that don't really perform all that well when they face really good edge people.
There's still no telling how much money Eric Stryker cost. Not Cam Robinson, who was the guy before him.
He had the weird name.
Yeah, Quanjo.
Yeah.
Quanjo.
Yeah. So, anyway, I didn't want to have a podcast where people are like, Carey's making excuses for the defense again. Which I kind of did. So, there you go. All right. I think that's about it, fellas. Trae Young show moves on to this weekend. Bedlam.
Stillwater, Bedlam.
Got to win it with Kansas coming up Tuesday. Is it Tuesday or is it Monday?
I think it's Tuesday.
I think it's Tuesday.
Yeah, they need, because I think it is Tuesday because they play Kansas on Big Monday up there, I thought.
Guys, you were talking about hoops earlier. Is there any state that if OU could just cut trips out of their basketball schedule, it'd be Kansas? They don't want to go to Bramlage. They certainly don't want to go to Allen.
I like it when they go to Allen, though.
the
buddy
awesome
game
us,
doesn't happen if they don't go to
Allen.
Allen Fieldhouse. I don't know. You got to keep trying. With Kansas, you just got to keep trying.
At some point, they're not going to win the conference. Kansas will drop a couple
I don't know
games.
if it's going to be this year after that West Virginia game.
Yeah, I think they'll
They
still
had
drop
no
a couple games.
business winning that game, and they
if Kansas State plays like they did on Tuesday night, they'll beat Kansas in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be tough. It's going to be really tough. OU needs to.
You would think that Tech would
back.
beat them in Lubbock after they beat them in Manhattan or in Lawrence.
You would think. TCU still has to go up to Lawrence, I think, because they already won in Fort Worth. So it will be interesting. It's a good conference. It's going to be a lot of fun over the next month. Big month. And you got next Saturday, you got the OU Alabama showdown in the SEC Challenge with
Alabama just beat Auburn.
Yeah, I forgot it guy's name. And they did it without Colin Sexton, so
yeah.
That should be a really good game next Saturday.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Unofficial 40. Thanks to Josh McQuistion. Thanks to Eddie Radosevich. And boys, we'll see you again next week. And OU Junior Days will be the first. Will be behind them. We'll have some more recruiting as we get closer and closer to signing day. A lot of drama, I'm sure, to play itself out. Michael Thompson, DaShaun White trying to hold off Texas A&M coaches from sneaking into his bedroom. All that good stuff. So until next time, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time right back here on the Unofficial 40.
Podcasts from Soonerscoop.com.